Parenting truly is a full-time job, whether we like it or not, like whether people are acknowledging that or not. Those of you who are going into offices, that's a struggle in and of itself. Those of you who are forced to put your career on a complete pause, that's a struggle in and of itself. Those of you who relate to what I'm doing, where you're trying to do both at the same time, it all has its pros and cons, and I think it's very common for us to sort of feel inadequate during this time. But I want to say, of course, that we shouldn't feel that way, that you're doing probably so many more amazing things than you even realize. You are being super productive every day just by waking up and having a, safe home for your kids and getting them off to daycare or school, and or keeping them home and preparing their meals and doing all of the little 24/7 tasks that are required. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Well for Culture podcast. It's been a few years, but here we are again. My name is Chelsey Luger, and I am Lakota and Anishinaabe. I grew up in North Dakota, and I'm from the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa on my mom's side. I'm from the Standing Rock Sioux tribe on my dad's side of the family, for those who don't know me yet. And I'm a wellness advocate and an author. And I'm coming to you from my home in Mesa, Arizona, where I live with my husband, Thosh Collins, and our daughters. And Thosh is my partner in all things in life, work, wellness, marriage, parenting. And typically we have done the Well for Culture podcast together as co-hosts, but we are going to be experimenting with something new over the next couple of months, where we are each doing our own solo episodes, a little bit shorter, a little bit snappier, and we're going to be getting into wellness topics that are more personal to us as individuals. I want to thank the Indigenous House, which is a cohort of creators that I am a part of, and Thosh as well. This is sort of a new media venture that is promoting and producing tons of amazing content from Indigenous creators all over Indian country. We're excited to be partnering with Indigenous House on these episodes. So to jump right into it, we announced over the weekend that we are expecting a third baby. I am so excited about that. Of course, our entire family has just been on cloud nine. I am currently in my second trimester. The baby is due in February. And it was really fun to just sort of finally share that over social media over the weekend. We did like a little Instagram post. It's kind of funny because I think with our first two babies, I want to say we were like a little bit more dramatic and maybe a little bit more curated with the way that we shared. Third time around, keeping it casual, and just literally went out for a morning family hike and snapped a couple pictures on the iPhone and put it up about an hour after that. So obviously tons of supportive comments and excitement shared by our friends and family in the virtual world. So thank you all for being so supportive and sweet. That made it really fun to announce the third baby. This episode is going to be all about how the pregnancy has been so far, what I've been doing for my wellness, and maybe I'll throw in a couple of tips here and there. So also I did a little Q&A over Instagram, and I sourced some audience questions from you all. So the majority of this episode is going to be me directly answering your questions. So the first question, somebody asked, how has the pregnancy been so far? How was first trimester? Ooh, I am so glad you asked, because it was honestly a struggle. It was by far the most challenging out of all three of my pregnancies. The challenge was extreme fatigue and morning sickness, which anybody who has experienced it is aware is not just sickness in the morning. It is a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week struggle. The reason why it was harder than the first two pregnancies is because it was more intense. First of all, every symptom that came with that nausea was just exacerbated, and it lasted a lot longer. With my first two, I would say I did struggle through morning sickness, but for about 2 to 3 weeks, and then it was kind of over. This one, it was a full solid 3 months of feeling the absolute worst sickness that I have ever felt. Now, when I say that, I want to shout out to those parents out there, those mothers out there who have it far worse than what I had. I know that there is a huge range of symptoms that women experience. And of course, I never want to sound like a pity party or like I have it so much worse than anybody else. There are a ton of women who not only have to experience this for the first trimester, but for the entire pregnancy. My sister was one of those who was sick for the entire 9.5 months of her pregnancy with both of her daughters. So huge empathy, sympathy, solidarity with those of you out there who know what this is like, because it's really challenging. It's really hard, like not just on your body, but on your mental health. It gets very depressing when for so many days and weeks or even months at a time, you cannot get out of bed, you cannot think, you cannot focus, you don't have any energy to do just like typical daily things. And all of the joys of life are hard to come by. Like the one of the hardest things for me was just the fact that like there was absolutely no food or drink that I wanted or that actually was enjoyable to me during this time. Now, there were a lot of foods and drinks that I guess you could put it in the category of cravings, where I would think about it and I'd go, please go get me Taco John's and a Coke, because it was the only thing that for whatever reason came into my mind in that moment as being able to stomach. And a lot of times it was like really yucky, not healthy foods that I wouldn't normally want to eat, particularly during a time like pregnancy when you know it's so important to nourish your body in the best way possible. But that's just the reality of first trimester. And I find it really important for me as a wellness advocate to share that with my audience, because I didn't have the answers during that struggle. And I consumed a lot of things that people would probably totally judge me for. But you know what? It was more important for me to get some calories and to get through my day than it was to try to maintain this like nutritional superiority. That just wasn't going to happen at this time. With that, I want to share what I did to help myself in those moments. The only tip that I really have is if you are prescribed vitamin B6 from your provider, which many women are if they're struggling with nausea during pregnancy, try it. Take that at night. I think it helped me a little bit. They'll prescribe vitamin B6, and sometimes they'll also prescribe an anti-nausea medicine to go with it. Like Unisom, or there's a few others that I'm not as familiar with, but I also tried like Dramamine. I don't know. I think that those helped a little bit. And of course, you have to check with your doctor on all this stuff and, read up about safety and everything like that with any type of medicine or supplement that you're taking during pregnancy. But yeah, try it. See what works for you. I think it helped me maybe just a little bit. And honestly, any amount of help was more than needed and welcome. The second nutritional tip that I have is protein was my friend. And it's funny because people will tell you just eat like carby, salty things to sort of like get that ickiness out of your stomach. For me, I actually found one of the most helpful things, and I had to do it right when I woke up in the morning, was to do a protein shake. I just got like a chocolate flavored protein powder from GNC, I think. And I didn't enjoy it by any means because I wasn't enjoying anything during that period of time. But it was the easiest and most efficient way for me to like chug down something that would fill my stomach and prevent me from being as nauseous. And once I sort of took down that protein, and I would have to plug my nose, and I would, like I said, it wasn't an enjoyable process for me, but it definitely helped me like manage that extreme nausea a little bit. And then from there, I could sort of snack on other things. But the protein was key. Avoiding dairy was also helpful for me. At first, I was getting my protein through like a high protein yogurt. And pretty soon I realized that the dairy in the yogurt was kind of like triggering my nausea meanwhile, the protein was helping me. So I switched that to doing the protein powder with a non-dairy like milk, or I would just mix it with water. And that was more helpful for me than doing like a high protein yogurt. But everybody's different. Try. So, which leads me to my next tip. And the most important thing is to just observe. Like listen less to the blogs and the people like me that you see online that are giving you these tips, and just try different things and really listen to your body and observe how you are responding, because I think that we are all so individual, and what works for you is not necessarily going to work for me. So how was first trimester? That's how it was. It was hard. One of the things that we talk about in wellness is it's so much more than just food and fitness. It's sleep. It is rest. It is community. And those were a few key factors for me that helped me get through the first trimester. The timing was pretty ideal in the sense that all of the first trimester nausea hit me literally on a road trip on the way from Arizona up to North Dakota. We go to North Dakota every summer to be with my family because we live here in Arizona, which is where Thosh grew up, and his whole extended network is here. My whole network is still up north. Our compromise is that's basically where we live during the summer, every summer. So it just worked out so well because we got to my sister's house about 5 days into my first week of that severe nausea. And for the next 2 months, close to 3, my sister and her husband, shout out to Liz and Eller, shout out to the Bonifacios, and to my sweet nieces, Elia and Eliza, they really, really stepped in and took care of my kids for me during that struggle. Now, of course, I mean, they go to work every day. Like I still had to manage my kids to a certain degree, but man, they helped us a lot in just keeping the kids busy, playing with the girls all day. Extended family, just like really, it's such a gift, and I appreciate it so much. And I'm so grateful for those relationships that we have and that support that we received during that time. And I think that with, the wisdom of retrospect and looking back on my first 2 pregnancies, where I went through that first trimester, like in a dark room in our 2-bedroom apartment here in Arizona, like by myself, I think that I learned that I need to ask for help and I need to accept all the help that's given to me during that time and to try not to feel guilty about it. Nobody's expecting you to be a superhero during an illness like that, and grateful to my family for stepping in. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to my next question, which kind of segues appropriately here. So somebody asked how to balance having little ones and staying home to be with them. She is a new mom, and she says it's hard not having a career or contributing labor-wise. I've never had the experience of not working during pregnancy or child rearing. Like I've always worked full-time, but from home. So I think it's a little bit different from what you're describing here, where I'm not necessarily a stay-at-home mom. Like Dash and I have both always contributed pretty much equally when it comes to like household income and all that stuff. But I do understand the feeling of feeling like you're not giving 100% to anything that you're doing. And so all I want to say to that is remember that this phase of the really intense part of parenting little ones is a very short phase, relatively speaking, in our lives. And I've heard this advice from so many women who are wiser than me. And just remember that it's okay to not be 100% perfect at any of these things that are on our plate at once. Parenting truly is a full-time job, whether we like it or not, like whether people are acknowledging that or not. Those of you who are going into offices, that's a struggle in and of itself. Those of you who are forced to put your career on a complete pause, that's a struggle in and of itself. Those of you who relate to what I'm doing, where you're trying to do both at the same time, it all has its pros and cons. And I think it's very common for us to sort of feel inadequate during this time. But I want to say, of course, that we shouldn't feel that way, that you're doing probably so many more amazing things than you even realize. You are being super productive every day just by waking up and having a, safe home for your kids and getting them off to daycare or school, and or keeping them home and preparing their meals and doing all of the little 24/7 tasks that are required of motherhood. It's a lot of work. And so I guess I also want to say that to those listeners out there who are supporting people in your lives who are pregnant or who are parenting right now. Acknowledge that, acknowledge that work that goes into it. When I was sort of in the midst of that first trimester struggle, I kept thinking to myself, like, how many women am I walking by on the street or in the airport or at the store who are just in the depths of that nausea and illness, and they are pushing through it anyway, and they've got 2 other older kids with them, or or they're showing up to work and they're just getting it done, and nobody around them is even aware that they're pregnant. They just have to do it without even any kind of like sympathy from the people or from the world around them. It's pretty amazing. So be easy on yourself, my friend. So the next question is, how did we have the courage to go for number 3? And it was a discussion for a long time. So that's why we have quite an age gap between baby number 2 and 3. So by the time this baby is born, our older daughter will be 8 and our second daughter will be 5. And so that's quite an age gap between 2 and 3. And we did consider for a while about maybe we were done at 2. We were kind of, that was for sure where our mentality was at when we were in the depths of the very, very early phase of having 2 at home. Now, context for that is when we brought Weston home from the hospital, Aloe was 2.5. It was the height of the pandemic where we had absolutely no outside contact from friends or family. I had just signed the contract to begin writing our book, The 7 Circles. And so I was working full time while also having a newborn and a toddler at home in the pandemic. That was hard. And it took a few years for us to even like recover from that and feel like we could sleep again and like we had our lives somewhat under control again. And it was when that recovery of health and rest came back that we thought, yeah, maybe we do want to do this again. So that's how I established the courage to go for number 3, is I just got to a point with the girls being a little bit older that I felt like I had things under control again. And we are, at an age where it is kind of now or never. I'm 37 and Thosh is 43, 42, something like that. And so, yeah. We thought if we're going to do it, this is going to be the year. We didn't want to wait much longer. And so we did. And we're, really excited that it happened. The next question is about regulation tips for kids and for toddlers. I'm kind of combining 2 questions into one. Somebody asked also about toddler whining and how do you prevent them or kind of coach them through whining when they do have their needs met, but they're just asking for a lot of wants. So the first thing I want to say to that is like these challenging behaviors that toddlers present, these are all developmentally normal to some degree. And so be easy on yourself that we can't like fix everything through parenting. Some of these things our only job is to be patient. Our only job is to be that person that has the patience with them to get them through this world and to get them through a place where they can grow up and learn their lessons. Regulation tips is always to demonstrate the energy that you want them to match. So the calmer that we can be, the more quiet, the more reserved, the more patient that we can be, will actually expedite their process of arriving to that place of patience with you. If you want to read or learn a lot more about this, there's a resource out there called Conscious Discipline, and it teaches a lot of strategies for demonstrating that patience as parents. But I find, now of course I've had my moments where I have lost my patience and where I just like have to walk out of the room and I'm just like, oh, I need a minute. I need to scream into a pillow, whatever it may be. My golden rule, again, that I've probably broken once or twice, but my golden rule is I don't yell at my kids. We try to have a generally quiet energy household. And, but do they scream their little heads off at me? Absolutely. My kids have had some of the most intense tantrums I've ever seen. So again, it's not that our parenting can make them perfect, but it is just having that awareness that these behaviors are to some degree developmentally normal and they will get through it. They will get past it. And you'll probably expedite that process by just being super, super patient. Probably something that you guys already know out there as parents, but I just want to reiterate. Next question, what is my approach to sleep? So I'm very, you could call it type B, you could call it committed to ancestral parenting ways, but I am not at all a sleep trainer. I've never picked up a book or even had any interest in sleep training, quote unquote. I just go with the flow. And so I'm probably not the best person to ask as far as having like really unique tips for how to get a baby onto a good sleep schedule. I go with the flow. I breastfeed on demand. I co-sleep all the way. I'm still co-sleeping with my 4-year-old, and I plan on continuing that. Now, where I do have more structure is after the toddler age. Now that my kids are in preschool and second grade respectively, I'm very, very strict. We're getting ready for bed. We're by 7 o'clock. They're in bed by 7:30, we're reading, and they're asleep by 8 p.m. every night. Super strict on that. And usually I fall asleep with them, so I get good rest as well. Next question, somebody asks, how does my husband Thosh support me during pregnancy and parenting? First of all, he validates my struggles. When I'm telling him, you would not believe this headache that I have right now, how my muscles are sore, or how it's impossible for me to get to a workout, or the mental health struggle that I'm having. He listens and he validates. And that is, I think, so important with healthy relationships. Not just during these phases, but all the time. You want to be validated, you want to be heard, you want to be listened to. You don't necessarily need them to come back to you with like a bunch of solutions. Try this, try that. Like, what about, so-and-so from down the block? What did she, you don't want to hear any of that. You just want validation and like, I don't know, a little bit of a shoulder to cry on. So I think that's the main thing. Ooh, this is an interesting question. Somebody asked, do we allow kids to be around our family when certain people are under the influence? So I can do a whole episode about this, but sobriety is number one for us. Like Thosh and I, even when we met 12, 13 years ago, whatever it was, we've never seen each other intoxicated. We both kind of had our little partying areas in our past, and I think for both of us, sobriety is a big part of our culture, and it's a part of our health and well-being practice. And we are extremely careful with our kids being exposed to that stuff. Now, have my kids been around when maybe some extended relatives are having a couple beers or something like that? Like, probably, but even that is like few and far between. Or at a restaurant, let's say, where other people around are, partaking. Yeah, but definitely they have not been in like a really rugged environment, which, is different from my childhood, certainly. I think I witnessed a lot more of that kind of activity when I was growing up, and my husband probably did too. And so that's why we're super careful about it. So yeah, keep those boundaries and keep them strong. And one place where they're never around it is in our personal family home. So nobody has ever brought alcohol or any kind of substances into this home. And if they're on those substances, like people in our family, they just know that it's not part of our lifestyle. They don't bring it here. Have those boundaries, make them clear. That is important for whole family wellness. It's you choosing your children's health over anybody else's comfort. I got another question about mom guilt. Do I have it? Yes, all the time. And I don't manage it very well. So I'm probably not the best person to be answering that question. I am the worst with mom guilt. For example, I travel a lot for work. And even during this first trimester, that was one of the challenging things. We teach workshops and we give presentations and speeches and stuff like that. We travel all around the country, all around the world to do that. And I had a number of things on my summer agenda. I had to go and do those gigs, even when I was feeling like the absolute worst of my first trimester sickness. So it was that layered with, I always have a hard time leaving my kids. It's even when they're with like my closest, most trusted family members, it's still difficult for me because I know as their mother, I'm just the one person that is super aware of all their little itty bitty needs and emotional triggers and all that kind of stuff. And you just want to be there for them when they're that little. I guess at the end of the day, I can always say that if I know I can trust myself enough to say if I'm leaving them, it's for a worthy reason. It's for work or it's for something really important in like my social life, like maybe a friend is getting married or, and even aside from the traveling conversation, you get mom guilt every day just over little things in life that you can't control. And I think it comes with the territory. And the best way to manage it is just give yourself some credit for all of the things that you are providing, that you are doing right, that is going well, and know that nobody has it perfectly down to where there are no issues and nobody's sick and nobody's having a hard time in school or whatever it may be. If you're feeling guilty as a mom, you're probably doing a really good job. I love this question. Somebody asked, what is the greatest surprise about becoming a parent? And for me, it's witnessing their unique personalities. Every day, I'm amazed by how different my kids are from me and from my husband and from each other. Nature is so much stronger than nurture, which is a lesson that I have learned for sure as a parent. And I just love witnessing and supporting and learning to understand who they are and facilitating their individuality is truly a joy. This is the final question I'm going to answer today. Somebody asked about traditional or ancestral knowledge when it comes to parenting and pregnancy and how I come across that because it can be difficult to find. And part of this, of course, depends on what tribal nation you're from. Always look to local people, ask questions of your elders, ask questions of your aunties and your family members and your sisters and grandparents. And people, I think, love to share their tips on how to raise happy, healthy Indigenous babies. In addition to that, you can strike a balance of also looking to books and articles. Just know that a lot of the ancestral pregnancy and parenting knowledge that you'll find is not necessarily going to be in a book that has that title or that's in that category. You have to really, really dig and find some obscure resources to learn about that kind of stuff. So I'm talking about autobiographies that were published a long time ago, or just historical documents that are about kind of maybe anthropological resources on different tribal communities. And you're going to find some gems if you really take the time to scour through those resources. And that brings me to the last and final segment of this podcast. And I'm going to try to do this on every episode to come. But I want to share, I have so many books. I'm a researcher. I'm kind of an academic. I'm kind of a nerd. I just have dozens and dozens of books on everything. And I want to share quotes that I pull about all kinds of wellness topics. And today, since we're talking about parenting and pregnancy, I pulled out this book from my shelf called Honor the Grandmothers, compiled and edited by Sarah Penman. Dakota and Lakota women share their stories. So in here, there's a chapter that interviews a woman named Selene Not Help Him. So a little bit about Selene Not Help Him. She's a Lakota woman. She was the granddaughter of Iron Hail, who survived the Battle of Little Bighorn and the Wounded Knee Massacre of 1890. She worked as a DJ in Porcupine, South Dakota, and she passed away in December of 1998 at the age of 69. This is a picture of her for those who can see. And what cherished wisdom to be able to see a little bit about what she wrote and to read a little bit of her words in a book like this. She said that her grandpa told them, being a parent, you have to be strong. You have to have patience and knowledge. You have to be brave and you have to have fortitude. You must have mercy. You must have compassion. You have to have all these. She says, before babies come, you make some sage tea, and right after the baby is born, you wash them with that sage. Her grandpa said, that baby is from a different world. That baby never been in this world before. And when they slip into the world, you wash them with the sage because the sage comes from the grandmother earth. She wants to be the first one to take care of the baby. If you do that, this grandmother earth is watching him. Make sure that he has a good, clean, quiet life and knowledge. You take him into Lakota family and he's going to be Lakota. There's no way that he can change his life to be a Washichu. Washichu has different ways of life. They don't believe in our traditions. After you wash the baby with the sage, there's a lotion made out of kidney fat and there's some kind of herb and water. You boil them together and let it settle. You empty the water, but have that salve and you put it all over them and you talk to them. And now this is what you say to the baby. Now you came into this world and the family will love you and keep you. The Great Spirit sent you to us. You talk to them like that. Even if they're just a newborn baby, still it goes into their brains, he said. Some, they don't do that to babies, so those babies cry a lot, especially when it's getting dark. And then it ends by saying, Grandpa always said, teach your kids and talk to them. Even if they're babies, that's the time to put a lot of good things in their mind and make sure their heart is developed in a good way. They remember as they grow and go down the red road. So again, the words of Selene, Not Help Him, from the book Honor the Grandmothers, compiled and edited by Sarah Penman. Just a little bit of ancestral parenting wisdom that is so valued and treasured and being actively revitalized and reclaimed by so many mothers, fathers, parents, caregivers in our Indigenous communities from all across Native country. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the revived and renewed season of the Well for Culture podcast. I'll be coming to you for the next few months with a series of solo episodes where I talk about a lot of different topics, some continuing on with the theme of parenting, but some on just like more general wellness stuff. So looking forward to all our conversations, and thank you all so much for listening.